again, everyone, and welcome to our vlog number 6, in which we're talking about the transition of buildings with First Congregational Church of Concord, New Hampshire. When we last left off, we shared with you that we had a bid from the Concord Coalition to End Homelessness at the beginning of September. And after having our annual meeting that same weekend, we then scheduled a special meeting in October. And after that vote was in the affirmative, we then started the process of closing. And it took about a month and a half. And part of this was the knowledge that the Coalition to End Homelessness needed to have the building closed on by, I think, the 20th of December in order to be able to use CARES Act money in order to buy the building. And so we were doing our best to help make that happen. And in about a week at the beginning of December, we moved all of our items from the education wing and the office spaces over into the chapel and the sanctuary, which we, within the agreement, are leasing back for up to 2 years from CCEH, and are currently using that for office space and storage, with the eventual hope of being able to be back in the sanctuary as we're moving through the pandemic still. So that's not quite yet for us, but so that was the timeline. So it was a crunch and it was a lot of work, but we had a lot of hands on deck, and folks in the community were interested in receiving the items that we were ready to get rid of, as well as members of the church who were willing to help us pack up items and shift them into the front section of the building. So yeah.
Yikes, what a process. This building was rebuilt after a fire in 1937, and so a lot of what we pulled out of places went all the way back. And we have a wonderful church historian who also happens to be our treasurer, Everett Sims, and he was one of the people. There were, I suppose 15, 20 people involved at various times and ways. He was one of the people, and he was often either keeping track of the financial documents or reminding us of the history of the church. I was saying to Amelia that I had a really interesting experience of doing this during that week or two, and that is that having been a member of the church since '78, about half the time of if you go from the rebuilding of the church in 1937 until now, about half that time I've been member. And I think while we talk in modern terms about spirituality, not modern, but Eastern spirituality, about you can only live in the moment, while that's true, there's also in Judeo-Christian faith the importance of the past and history, and the importance of hope in the future. And during this transition time, I was in both places at the same time. I've never felt more embedded in the rich and varied history of First Church. Last summer, we worshiped at all the sites where we've had buildings that eventually burned or that we moved out of. I had never felt more embedded in that history, and it felt alive to me. Mm-hmm. And at the same time was just so excited about all the possibilities for our reimagining of ourselves that we have continued to do in conversations with each other in the circle way that we told you about before. And so I was both. I had one foot. I felt like I had one foot in the past and one foot in the future, and I was straddling.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I think there were lots of people who experienced that. And even for myself as the pastor, to really be able to pull forward the ancestors of this congregation of almost 300 years, and to say this is something that our ancestors have done many times in various ways, but to pull on the strength of the ancestors of First Congregational Church, knowing that they've walked through this process before and have continued on with ministry through all of their transitions. And so being in a space where we are now within one of those generations that are doing a big transition with intention creates a space for some really powerful work from the Holy Spirit with us to help us figure out what is next for us. What does our ministry look like in the future?
Just quickly, if you don't know our pastor, Amelia, she is the 5th generation clergy.
I am.
And so perhaps for that reason, as well as being extremely imaginative, she from the get-go, when she came here almost 7 years ago, both asked us to really envision our connection with our ancestors from when she first got here, and she's continued to do that, and at the same time has really nudged us to move, to color outside the lines with regard to the future, to really think about where all the places that we might go, and we might be under the leading of the Holy Spirit. So
yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Tim, as always, for helping to create this space of vlog for everybody who's interested in this transition. And thank you all for tuning in. As always, we invite you to like this video and subscribe if you haven't, so that you don't miss more of these videos. And if there's someone or an organization that you think might benefit from hearing our story, we invite you to share these transition vlog videos with them as well. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next one.